You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast postgame show with Ben White. I'm Mike Luke. Brad Allis will be joining us at some point. Ben, this was an absolute statement victory by the University of Arizona against a team that, let's be honest here, this wasn't Washington State. This team is actually good. And beating Oregon State in the manner in which this just happened, the way that Arizona salted this game away, this was something impressive, my man.
It was a game, especially in that first half, where you watched Arizona on both sides of the ball and you thought, man, there's not really much more you think in terms of what could go wrong. The running game wasn't going on, the turnover, missed opportunities, and what Arizona was able to do in that second half, pull away, establish a running game. I believe there was, 40 yards rushing in the first half. I think 19 of those alone was just one run from Jonah Coleman. So from the get-go, it was very hard for Arizona to get established, and you got to give them credit because when it mattered most on that final drive in the fourth quarter, you were able to run the ball, you were able to move the ball effectively, burn enough time to get down in the red zone and put this game away, Mike. Really remarkable performance, man.
This was a remarkable performance. And Brad, this is a team right now that I expect to be in the top 25 come early next week. This was a gritty performance. Arizona didn't even play its best game. Neither did Oregon State. But Arizona was able to salt this game away. And I think it's fair to say that Arizona was the better team.
Yeah, if you look at Arizona's performance over the last few weeks and you're taking that as a whole, you obviously have to think they're one of the 25 best teams in the country. And we know, they sometimes these voters don't watch these late games. They're just going to see Arizona's record at 5-3. But even though they have apparently broken Washington, broken USC, broken Washington State, they're a good team.
Right.
So this, yes, does it deserve to be ranked? Yes. Will it? Yeah, I don't know. Did Vanderbilt beat Memphis Technical College in cosmetology school? Because they'll get more credit for that than Arizona will for beating a pretty good Oregon State team. But first thing I guess I'd say, that drive at the end of the game was remarkable.
Right.
5 minutes, 55 yards, and you cap it off with a touchdown. It was almost as good as the last defensive one was bad. If you're going to run prevent, you got to make them run more than 4 plays in 75 seconds or 44 seconds or whatever it is.
And that's
just a remarkable win. It's a really good win for Arizona.
And that's when you know, too, that you're a team that is on the verge of doing something really good. Like with even when Rich Rod's teams were really good, it always felt more smoke and mirrors. He was a really good coach. He was a tactician. He was getting guys open. Ben, this was a team right here that just essentially beat Oregon State down there in that last drive where they couldn't stop him. They were running the ball right at him, and there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah, talk about timing. I mean, that last drive, it couldn't have come at a better time, and especially in a game, too, where you watched Arizona, especially on the defensive side, and you thought, man, these guys are just outmatched. I mean, Oregon State might have one of the best offensive lines in the country. If it's not top 5, it's not top 10. I don't know where people are watching. But at the same time, Arizona got lucky in the right opportunity. I think the offense really put it all together in the sense that they realized they have a plethora of running backs back there. And I think Fisch maybe was hesitant at times because the possession thing, as we've talked about all year with college football and the new rules, possessions are very limited these days, and they're very hard to come by. Arizona only had 3 possessions there in the first half, and maybe that's what you attribute to Fisch not running the ball as much there throughout that game. But when they needed to, they clicked. Noah Fifita, we'll get to him, made the right plays there on that last drive, was able to recognize where to get the ball correctly And Michael Wiley, that play call was fantastic there to put that touchdown away there. So everything kind of pieced together, rightfully so, for Arizona. And really, like you said, you're not accustomed to seeing this because so many times in years past, whether it's a talent issue, whether it's a personnel issue, or just an injury issue, at this time, we look at past a lot of seasons, Arizona just hasn't been healthy a lot of times, even in late October. So they've got the personnel and they were able to make it click. And it goes to show you, Arizona has been in every single game that they've played this year. And tonight was just another example, right time, right place.
Yeah, and Noah Fifita, obviously, he was able to make the plays there, Brad, when he needed to make the plays. We had Matt Muehlbach on the post-game show last week, and he said that he thought he was a little bit like Jason Gardner in the way that not going to be a guy that's going to be a great pro prospect or anything like that, but you have leadership qualities in him, and you have just an understanding there that everything's going to be okay with the ball in his hands.
I think the apt comparison is Keith Smith. A little undersized. He's a different player, but if Keith Smith was 6'2", he would have been a 10-year NFL starter. If Noah Fifita was 6'2", he'd probably be a 10-year NFL starter, and he may, like Keith, not sniff the league. So, but I want to go to two key coaching decisions, I think, in this game. And, you're talking about the evolution of Jedd Fisch and Johnny Nansen. We talked, and Ben mentioned the Michael Wiley 40-yard touchdown catch. They got him matched up on a defensive end. Right. Now, it's an athletic defensive end. The touchdown, and I'm not even sure who caught it, to be honest. I was so too busy pumping my fist and high-fiving the dogs, was the touchdown to seal it.
Right.
They got him matched up with the defensive end. So Arizona found something in Oregon State's defensive scheme that they thought they could exploit, and they exploited it on the two biggest plays of the game. Conversely, after that first drive, this is going to sound familiar to the Washington State game. After the first drive, they kind of just decided, you know what? We're going to rush 4. We're going to trust that DJ can't pick apart our secondary.
Mm-hmm.
They dropped 7. A few times they did drop 8. And really, if our good friend Takario can catch a little better, and there's a reason now he's playing corner and not wide receiver, this is a very different game. Because he just doesn't read the field well, except on that last drive. He's just a.
You know what? He's not a bad
quarterback. He's good. He's fine.
But he's just not what he was supposed to be. That's the thing.
Yeah. If he didn't come out of there as a 5-star prospect with all the praise in the world and the guy who's going to replace Trevor Lawrence, then maybe we'd be like, oh, he's fine. But let's go back. I'm going to throw out some Oregon State quarterbacks for you. Who would you rather have?
Right.
Matt Moore or this guy?
Yeah.
You're right.
Who would you rather have? The guy coaching?
Well, the guy coaching for sure.
Or that guy. He's fine. And I know, man, I might be tempted to go to the kid. That kid, I mean, he moved the ball. They only get a field goal, but that kid's pretty dynamic. I forget his name, Childs.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, they almost got the announcer jinx and said he's never thrown a pick, and he threw one right into Davis's hands.
Right. And, here's the thing with Takario Davis, too. He should have had 3 picks. But, again, you don't take him off the field, obviously, because like Peeposh says, the great Peeposh, Davis still served his purpose, jumping those passes and getting into the QB's head for sure. He's
3 TBUs.
It's one of those things like Lamont Lovett said. And, it's the age-old phrase that's why you're not playing wide receiver right there. Totally get that. One decision, though, that I thought was incredibly perplexing, and I thought it was one of the dumbest play calls I've ever seen, was that play at the end of the first half by Oregon State. You got 3 points right there. You have to take those. That was not a 4-yard quarterback sneak. That was a 14-yard quarterback sneak. And even though they had the play they wanted, it was still 5 yards short, guys. I have never seen anything quite that dumb.
Well, the announcers even made a point to make fun of it there. I think at the end of the game, they probably said it about 8 or 10 times. But yeah, like you said, it's one thing to call a fake and it's one thing to run it the way they did. But we're not talking 2-3 yards. We're talking 16 to 20 yards. I was taken back by that. Maybe there was a communication issue from a coaching standpoint. I don't know what was going on there because, I mean, anybody anybody who plays Madden wouldn't even try something like that there, Brad. So I'm not sure what they were thinking there.
And they tried it earlier.
Right.
They did.
That's the thing.
What was it? The false start of the delay of game. And unless I'm not seeing it correctly, it was the same exact play.
Right.
Which was basically the equivalent of a quarterback sneak with a kicker, a punter.
But that play was to get like 2 or 3 yards
off
though.
Tackle. Yeah, no, and it's a great play if you're trying to. Yeah. Did they? The only thing I can think of is they didn't have. They thought they had a timeout, or thought they had more time, or again, someone just screwed up. Reminds me of what happened with Tyrod Taylor a few weeks ago, where he ran the ball with no timeouts. Could have beat Buffalo there.
The boss, Saul Bookman. Hello, Saul Bookman. How are you doing?
Fantastic, dude. I have to say it because I'm here at PHNX and I try to, be respectful of all the teams. But all 5 teams in the state of Arizona won today. But more importantly, 4 of those 5, which are the most important 4 of the 5, we won't talk about the other school, took care of business, man. And also, Brad, don't give Oregon State all the excuses. They were just dumb as shit in that moment. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Like,
I just don't know whether to blame the kicker or the coach or.
Oh, no, it was 1,000,000% a play call. Like, they had it designed to run. Like, that was just stupid. I was sitting there and I was just like, am I missing something? Yeah. Like, were they hoping to get a penalty or something? Like, blows me away from that far out. Maybe if you're like on the 2 or 3 yard line, maybe I can see that, but that was ridiculous. So
it was wild. And guys, we'll get to all the plays, but Arizona has arrived. I'm going to say this. This is the first time since 2017 I expect Arizona to be in the rankings. And not only that, this feels sustainable, fellas. This feels across the board, from the defensive side, from the defensive line to the linebackers, to the DBs, to the offense, across the board. Ben, this is a defense right there. This is an offense that looks the part. And even with Rich Rod, we're not used to seeing that.
No, I mean, you're not used to going out there where Arizona's in every single game. I mean, it just goes to show you from a roster standpoint, talent standpoint, coaching standpoint, it's never been better, the last 10, 15 years. And when you have those big guys, and we keep going back to it, when you have those 3 or 4 big guys on the defensive line and you have the depth on the O-line, which you haven't had in years past, games are won and lost at the line of scrimmage. And when you're able to rotate guys in, I mean, Upshaw had the sack tonight. Granted, it was tough for Arizona most of the game, let's be honest, to get to DJ Uiagalelei. But at the same time, the pass rush clicked when it needed to. And as Arizona's shown over the last few games and throughout the entire season, when that pass rush is clicking, they're in every single game. So I would expect them to flirt with that 23 to 25 range, right? But like Brad said, a lot of bias there when it comes to that AP top 25, especially this being a late game. Perhaps folks are just looking at the score, but I would hope they're ranked. And you know what? I think they should be ranked.
Saul Bookman, do you believe they should be ranked? I say you do think this.
You would be right. I'm not going to stay here very long. I just wanted to say to that exact point, it's like you read my mind. I do feel like this is sustainable. I think what they're doing will stand the test of time, even in the Rich Rod years. And this is no disrespect to the Scooby Wrights of the world and all them, but it still felt a little gimmicky from time to time in terms of the amount of, or the talented athlete, the 2 or 3 star, trying to get them to develop to the point where they were, these superstar wide receivers and fast and speedy and gimmicky defenses and 3-3-5s and all this other BS. This feels far more substantial. Even if they only go 7-5 this year, I really feel so much better going into next year with this regime than I did going from the South Division win into the next year with Rich Rod. And it sounds weird to say because we got to the Pac-12 championship that year, and that's fine. But I really feel like when you're talking about building something from a foundational perspective, this is exactly what we hoped would happen. And the types of guys that Jedd Fisch is bringing in here and the development that we've seen him be able to do has been tremendous. And hey, I don't care who comes into the program. I don't care if they're from Tucson or if they're from some other place in the country. You just got to know that Jedd Fisch can develop you into a pro talent because he's doing it right now as we speak with multiple guys that are going to play in the NFL. You got to say there's probably at least 6 to 8 guys right now on this roster that are going to play in the NFL at some point, not to mention the guys that haven't really gotten a lot of playing time yet, but will as we move forward, like a guy like Speedy Luke. That's going to happen. Speedy Luke is going to be an NFL player someday. He's just got to find his niche, and you're starting to see it a little bit the more and more he gets his playing time. So a tremendous win tonight, guys. I just wanted to say that.
No, Saul, boss, I got to ask you one question. We back
the A all fucking day here, Mike. You know that.
Oh, I know we do. But Noah Fifita, my guy, what are your thoughts on Noah? We got 4 games now. What does the boss, Saul Bookman, think about Noah Fifita?
I mean, is anybody saying Noah shouldn't be the starting quarterback?
I don't think so.
You should drug test them if they are.
Yes.
Because Noah Fifita is
only if
the,
you
the
think
truth.
there's a promise made.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's
no.
Noah Fifita.
It's Noah
If you're
Fifita.
trying to win, if you're trying to win football games, listen. The Wildcats should have beat Mississippi State. You can't sit there. I won't believe anybody if they sit there and say that if Noah Fifita played against Mississippi State, we still lose that game. There's not a chance in hell that happens. We win that game. We should have beat USC. We kind of fell apart at the end. Should have beat USC. USC was a fraud to begin with. They should have never been in a top 10 team. That defense couldn't hold a bucket. So, I mean, you realistically could be 7-1 right now instead of 5-3, but I'll take 5-3. I love it. I'm so proud of this program. I know a lot of people in Tucson are finally starting to get on the train. We got to sell that thing out next week against UCLA. I'm going to be down there because I'm stoked. I'm all about Jedd Fisch in that program right now for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Saul, you can join us anytime you would like, my guy. Obviously.
See you guys.
Appreciate you, boss. But yeah, Brad, this was big. This is big time, man. I don't know what else to say.
You know, it's funny because it's an interesting point, and I just thought of it, but I'm going to piggyback on what Saul and Ben actually have said, and maybe you too. Rich Rodriguez tried to find guys with NFL talent who had Division II size. You know, no one denies if Scooby Wright was a little bit fast, a little bit bigger. He's an NFL type player. I mean, he's an XFL All-Star. You know, Samaje Grant and Nate Phillips, if they're 6'1", 6'2", they're probably NFL players.
Right.
They're 5'3". They're my size. The opposite is true here. For a lot of these guys are NFL players, but I'm not sure Big Bill Norton's playing in the NFL, but guess what? He's 6'2", 3 something.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Parker Zellers. No offense,
Right.
Parker Zellers, but when I suggested Parker Zellers was secretly really 260, Kurlavich chewed out one of the Finley brothers. So the fact is these guys have NFL size. Even, you know, Reagan Taylor Upshaw has NFL size. I don't
Reagan
think he's an
Upshaw
NFL player
from USC.
Well, his dad. That's
Right.
his dad, you know. You look at some of these other guys, you know, Davis and Price, I think, are NFL players, but those guys are 6'3", 6'4" corners. So, yes, you have NFL players. The only guy who fits into the Rich Rod scheme of things are, ironically enough, Jacob Manu and Noah Fifita, who are undersized but just freaking great ball players. But the rest of these guys, this team looked better coming off the bus than those Rich Rod teams did. And obviously, the Sumlin guys, whatever. But yeah, that's what I think is interesting about this. They're doing it with NFL offensive linemen. They're doing it with NFL-sized defensive linemen, with, you know, defensive backs who are not midgets, with wide receivers, with the exception of maybe Jacob Cowing, who again might be MVP tonight, not only for the punt return and the big catch, but also that play on the onside kick where one of the Cats batted it towards the sideline and he rode it out of bounds. Most of these guys. Oh, I had Norton too short. Okay, sorry, our easy Wildcat fan. I'm not used to tall linemen at Arizona. But yeah, I think that's very interesting that Arizona's, again, Jedd Fisch is using his NFL connections to try to create this type of team.
I do need to complain about something here, and believe me, it's not on the field. But first, got to get a couple of the bills paid right here. Gila Rivers Casinos, my friends. All right, Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit GilaMillionDollarShowdown.com to get in on the action. For more information on Gila River Resorts and Casinos and all they have to offer, head to play at Gila.com. Again, Here's the great deal. You can win up to $100,000 in cash, 21 on only over, and Circle K. Brad Ellis, when was the last time you went to Circle K? Today?
Yesterday. No, we had enough Gatorade left over from yesterday's Circle K run. We didn't have to go today.
All right. Well, either way, Circle K, the inner circle right here. Do you get it? Ben White, do you get it? The inner circle.
Believe it or not, I get it.
Okay. Join the inner circle today for free by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. All right. I got to complain about something here. So I came back from the game. I watched the first half at the game. Then I came back and watched it here. This commentary was absolutely atrocious. I'm not talking about just missing a play here or there. I am talking about an absolute lack of any form of preparation for what they were doing. First of all, you start out the game referring to Noah Fifita multiple times as Fufuda. Come on, dude. It doesn't even look like that. Then DJ Uiagalelei, this is not hard to pronounce. Tai Uiagalelei, not hard to pronounce. Uiagalelei. What is Uiagalelei? I mean, there was no prep, and quite frankly, it was absolutely embarrassing. I can't believe, and again, they kept calling them the Ducks and Oregon State. This was, Ben, we've seen some bad broadcasters in our lives. This was as bad as I've seen, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, we worked with some, unfortunately. I mean, this whole crew gets an F. I mean, everybody from producer to spotter to engineer to studio producer to play-by-play announcer to color analyst, just an F. I couldn't believe it. And it's not like DJ is a quarterback who isn't very well known across college football. Anybody who's spent even 10 seconds watching college football over the last 5 or 6 years knows who this guy is just because he played at Clemson. I thought it was bizarre. I understand that they were corrected within that press box by somebody who we both know, Mike.
Right.
But apparently that correction didn't serve them very well. Definitely the epitome of, go ahead.
I will, oh, by the way, DJ, I will tell you about this ladder here in a minute. But Shelby Shear went up to the spotter for ESPN and said to him in the press box, you know that they're mispronouncing every single name. And then the guy goes, well, which names? And she said, well, it's not Fufuda. And then he says, yeah, we talked about it after the first quarter. And then she says, there's no N in Uiagalelei. And then just going on and on. Wendell Moy was another one that they used. Jacob Coing. Brad, come on.
Okay, I have announced 3 football games in my life. Made sure I had a pronunciation guide. I have announced, not the what was a Mountain West Championships. I'm not as cool as you, Mike, but some little league games. And you know what I do? I go ask the kids or their parents how you pronounce your last name, because I once called a kid Vigil. It was Vahil. He was, and his dad corrected me, and it was fine. He's actually a friend of mine now, really good guy. But from then on, I made sure I had pronunciations because, especially when there's some really weird names when you get into like Blythe, California, who play in Arizona for Little League. So, yeah, it's really easy to do. And guess what? There's this cool little thing that the SID hands out.
The pronunciation guide.
It's got a
Believe it or not,
guide.
it's right in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go ask them.
And again, God rest his soul, we do all know that our good friend Dave Sitton didn't believe how Kirill's name was pronounced because, a friend of his
Nachinko
or Nachinko at one point.
Oh, Nachinko, that's right. Yes.
Because his friend told him that's the pronunciation, but it turned out the friend was not Ukrainian. But, it is what it is. It's ESPN Pac-12 broadcast. What do you expect? They suck. They've sucked for years. At least I think they were in Tucson, unlike the Fox counterparts, who are better broadcasting from their houses than these guys were. And I do want to shout out. We have a guy. I'm looking at the names here on the side. Grant Franzen. I believe if it's the same one, he's a Cougar who was a couple years ahead of me. We never met or anything, but I knew the name. So shout out if we got another Saguaro Cougar there to join the we got about 4 or 5 who join us from time to time, because we all know you back the S and you back the
You
A.
back the S. Yes. All right. This ladder, this has been asked. It is strictly for decoration right there. I got it for a very cheap, I got it on a very cheap deal, and I decided that it would accentuate the A right there. That is all it is right there. Now let's talk about the running back situation here. This was, and excuse me, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. I believe that this is about as good as it's been at Arizona as far as Jonah Coleman is obviously a monster. We know exactly what they've been able to do, what he's been able to do. DJ Williams runs somebody over every single game. Michael Wiley back in the mix as well, catching touchdown passes, running through. Ben, these guys really complement each other well.
Because all of them can do very different things. And you feel bad at times because I know Wiley was out with injury and he got in, obviously had the touchdown tonight there to end the game and did some good things there in the first half. But you almost felt like, man, Arizona just needs to go to Jonah Coleman more, or Arizona needs to go to DJ Williams more. Coleman's a guy who's a bowling ball, man. I think Brad put it out there. I think it was one of the last possessions, but he's so patient too with the ball. It reminds me of somebody like Le'Veon Bell, kind of 240, 245, 250, kind of sits back, very, very patient, takes what the defense gives them. And once he finds that hole, he just goes, man. And he's got size, or he's got speed, excuse me, for being the size he is, you wouldn't expect. So all of them can do different things, and they just look very comfortable. I mean, they're not just the downhill back. They can be the downhill back, but you can get these guys out in space. And I think that really speaks to this entire offense. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks as well, but reminds you almost like the San Francisco 49ers. How much of their offense is just receivers and running backs making plays in space? And that's what Arizona likes to do. They do it with Fifita now at quarterback. You take the smart play, you take the underneath play, and you rely on T-Mac and Jonah Coleman and all these guys to make big plays. But at the same time, you can go downfield as need as we saw tonight. But this probably, from a roster standpoint, definitely the most talented we've seen in quite a while. But I would also argue, Brad, that's the most dynamic offense we've seen in terms of just skill players.
Yeah, I mean, they're still not putting up those gaudy numbers that occasionally Rich Rod could do against bad football teams, or even that Oklahoma State game where they put up 56. But he's also not getting skunked.
Right.
The closest they came was Stanford. And really, frankly, tonight until kind of the end they got going. But that's the thing. They kept with it. They kept kind of flipping the script, flipping the playbook, figuring out what worked. And you're right, though. Yeah, this is again, I can see a scenario where we could see 3 or 4 of these running backs on NFL rosters or practice squads just because they are kind of NFL backs. They're physical. They're fast enough.
Right.
It reminds me again, I think I've mentioned at one point Carolina had 3 NFL running backs on the same roster, and none of them had more than 400 yards rushing in their career in any one season. That's what this kind of reminds me of. And again, it's a long shot because we all know, if Kadeem Carey can't make the NFL, who knows who can? But Wiley showed why he's important tonight. DJ Williams showed why he's important tonight. Jonah Coleman showed why he's. Not only did he have that super patient, he also trucked his own offensive lineman.
Right.
Who, credit to him, didn't fall and kept looking for blocks. And then that's not even counting Speedy Luke, who again I think is probably a year away from really figuring it out.
Right.
But that's 4 guys there, and they've got another who's the track kid from LA who's coming. I mean, that kid's probably got to see the field. I know Williams and Wiley I think are done, but you never know with these COVID years or whatever. So this is a great crop of backs. Again, I can't remember anything like this since the early Tomey years when they had Greathouse and Eldridge and Antoine Carter and Errol Sapp and 3 other guys. It's been a long time, but that's back when you also ran 75% of the time.
All right. By the way, TJ Van Martyr, 2 people have mentioned this. Yes, we need to stop with the overrated chants. It diminishes what you just did out there. Yep. Oregon State is a good football team. They're probably not the 11th best football team in the country, but they are a legitimate top 25 team. Zona Zoo, stop being stupid right there. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. We absolutely do not want to minimize what has just happened here because then that makes us look silly. Also, one thing that I think
Should you chant underrated?
Yes, underrated. Yes.
There we go.
What did worry me, though, and a couple people have mentioned this, why weren't they in victory formation at the end? That terrified me because we've seen stuff like that before there, Ben.
If I'm not, well, I'm listening to the announcers, and who knows if they're accurate.
Yeah.
They call it a horse collar, although granted, I thought it was a pulled dreadlock. But they said they couldn't run it all the way down, and they were going to have to either take the snap on fourth down or have and run it out. And I mean, granted, you're giving them like 3 seconds, but who knows? That's the only thing. I didn't do the math, and I'm ashamed to say I didn't do the math, but I was also trying to get my microphone to work.
I mean, but again, that's fair. But Ben, it terrified me right there because we've seen Mario Cristobal, and I'm not surprised by that didn't work for him. But we saw Mario Cristobal have that issue as well.
Yeah, we did. I was doing a billion different things, getting our tweets out and all that good stuff. But yeah, it didn't look good. Got to be smarter. Just take the knee, man. Just take the knee. That's all you got to do.
All right, now Damon has some stuff for us. But first, all right, what do I want to read here? Shady Rays. You know what? I'm feeling really cool right now. Jedd Fisch, I'm sure, is feeling very, very cool, as Jedd Fisch should. Now, check it out. Shady Rays. Here's the deal. Let me find this real quick. There it is. All right. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people and OGs. All right. Now, you might have had a little bit of a headache listening to Rod Gilmore right there, and I don't blame you. That's where OGs comes in right here. OGs. Check out our friends at OGs Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. Check them out across all socials at OGs Brands and online at ogsbrands.com to find them at a local dispensary near you. Must be 21 years or up to enjoy responsibly. All right. Now, what does this win mean going forward? There's not a team on Arizona's schedule that they can't beat. Now, again, they might lose to some teams. Not saying they won't. But right now, you got 5 wins. This team will become bowl eligible. Now it's just now I believe it's how greedy can we get here, guys? Because you got UCLA, that's a winnable game. ASU is a winnable game. Colorado's a winnable game. And then you got Utah. You got some winnable games in front of you there, William.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd be stunned now if they don't get bowl eligible. And I think I'd be stunned if they don't get the 7.
Me too.
UCLA is going to be tough. That's a quality football team, but they're no better than Washington State or Oregon State. Maybe Washington. Washington State seems to be exposed. Something's been exposed, but Washington State's a good football team.
Right.
Oregon State's a very good football team. Utah's still the class of that group, but
it's at home though, and they didn't look so good today.
They did not look good. And Arizona's Jedd Fisch has played them well.
Right.
Remember, everyone talks about they should have beaten them the COVID year. They probably shouldn't have beaten Cal, but they outplayed them in the COVID year. So, I know they run the ball very well, but Arizona, did you hear the announcer? This one was funny. Obviously, Oregon State ran the ball effectively, but they're over 100 yards. Yeah, I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Right.
I thought they were closer to 200 yards. And ASU, credit to them. They won today, and they've played well the last few weeks, but Arizona's better. But it's a rivalry game, and Colorado has been exposed. They're going to be what we thought they were. I just thought they'd put those 3 or 4 wins throughout the year, not all at the beginning. So, I think Arizona is looking to me like at minimum a 6 or 7 win team. Mm-hmm. Where it gets interesting is where can they finish if they win out? And again, that's a tall order. I get it. But if you go 9-3,
you're knocking on that. Honestly, if you go 9-3 and you win out
6-2 in the Pac-12,
you're probably looking at something. You're probably ranked
3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, I mean, you're probably not sneaking into that game because you don't have tiebreakers against 2 of the better teams and you don't play Oregon, but you make it interesting.
Right.
And at the very least, you could be close to having one of your best Pac-12 seasons ever in the final year.
All right, Damon, let's go here. Let's go to the stats first. Or what do you have right here, Damon? All right, here we go. All right, so again, I mean, 363 to 407 total yards right there, 21 first downs, time of possession pretty even right there. You know, it was just a this was just a game that Arizona in the past loses these type of games. Arizona didn't win that, or Arizona doesn't win those. That's where I feel you've also kind of turned the corner. Arizona loses a game like this off a fumble or some kind of tipped pass that goes back the other way. Then there was absolutely none of that.
That's the best way of putting it. And we were talking during the game where I think Arizona, you know, obviously you could have went for the touchdown or went for the field goal. The field goal still makes it a touchdown game. And we're all sitting there thinking, man, you got to go for the touchdown. You got to go for the touchdown. I'm thinking, well, this defense has done a pretty good job the last 3 or 4 series here late in the fourth quarter of making stops. So at least make it a 1-score game. I think it's just PTSD from what we've watched for so many years, right? Because these guys can be up by 7 points, 10 points with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you just don't feel comfortable about it. And there is another down to play for tomorrow. We've got to get in that mindset of, hey, this defense is good. This defense can make stops. And despite just the sleepwalking on the offensive side we saw in the majority of the game, whether it was not getting the running game going, whether it was Fifita missing a couple of throws or just the stalls here and there, that it just didn't look good. And like you said, we're just so used to Arizona playing, I guess, underperforming, right, for the majority of the game up until the last 2 drives where it really mattered. They were able to put it all together. I don't think we've ever seen a team in recent memory the last few years here where all 3 phases just have clicked at the right time. And if there's one way to sum up this game, I would just say that they played well enough throughout the game. They probably didn't play up to Oregon State standard, obviously, but the talent you have, the depth you have, the coaching and the personnel, you were just able to make everything click at the right time. And when you're able to do that, as we've seen back-to-back wins against ranked opponents the last 2 weeks, you're in it against Washington, you're in it up until triple overtime against USC. You've got a lot to play with here, man. And this team can just do so many different things. All 3 phases do things very, very well, you know, whether it's the running game, the receivers you have. And it comes down to, too, when you have talent and when you have depth and you can win at the line of scrimmage and be respectable, you're going to win football games. You just are.
Yeah, and Brad, let's go to the Noah Fifita A factor right there, if you can there, Damon. The Noah Fifita, this 25 of 32, 275 yards, 3 TDs right there. Brad, this dude's going to be the quarterback here at the U of A for the next 3+ years. And I think I speak for a lot of people, and I'm incredibly excited to see exactly where this guy can take Arizona, because he's got a little special something about him right there. JDL did some really good things, but JDL never, I felt like, had a clutch factor to him, whereas Noah Fifita has that clutch factor in spades.
Granted, he made 2 passes on this drive. I think he made 2 passes on the one at Stanford. But when does Arizona run out the clock or run out a good chunk of the clock? Again, you're talking PTSD. I can tell you, I can remember 4, 5, 6 games in my life where the other team did that to Arizona.
Probably remember a lot more than that, Brad.
These are ones I can name specifics.
Right,
We're going back to Iowa and Iowa City, about half the USC games under Mike Stoops. This team was able to, twice in this game, essentially, they took 5 minutes off the clock going just 55 yards and scored a touchdown. Then what do? They get the ball back at the end, and granted, the odds of giving the ball back to Oregon State with any meaningful time was, but we've seen it before, and you know they necessarily haven't lost. But again, you're right; anything can happen. I mean, even though it's the right decision to run, let's go back to Gilbert Harris, shall we? But Arizona was able to do that, and Fifita didn't have to do it all with his arm, but guy had 7 incompletions tonight.
Right. I mean, he's wildly accurate. He's completing on the season 75% of his passes, and I think that's going to continue.
You know, and I know he threw the pick, but looking by Jedd Fisch's reaction, that appears to be a route, not a. I mean, he shouldn't have thrown it anyways, but yeah. And I'll take 1 pick every 2 games if he's putting up 275 and 3 TDs.
Right.
You know, this is a guy. It's funny because Arizona's brought in a lot of 4-star quarterbacks over the years who aren't very good. This kid it was underrated. And again, maybe the comparison is, I think Anu Solomon was a 3-star quarterback who was pretty good when he wasn't concussed. But yeah, Fifita's just special, and it's fun seeing
Fifita just get like in the grand scheme. Fifita just kind of gets it. I mean, he gets the moment, he gets the situation. He just kind of gets it. You can't really put your finger on it exactly, but you know when you see it.
Well, it's like you said, the clutch gene. Yeah.
And there's so many things too that he can do well based off the situation, what defenses throw at him. I mean, to give you an example, right? Like somebody like Khalil Tate, obviously, when things would break down, he would just use his feet, and that was his cop out, right? Brandon Dawkins, same thing, tried to rush the ball. I mean, we can go on and on, but the point is, like, this kid can do a number of different things. If he has to be clutch, and if it's 3rd and long, it's 3rd and 15. And Arizona had a lot of long 3rd downs tonight, 3rd and 31 at one point. I'm not saying they have a shot there, but if it's 3rd and long, he's not fazed by it. If he needs to get the ball down the field and drop 4 or 5 steps back and chuck it over the middle, he can do that. If he needs to rush and pick up 5 to 6 yards, he can do that. If he needs to throw underneath to a running back or Tanner McLaughlin, he can do that as well. So there's not a situation or a play call, I think, where this coaching staff maybe doesn't feel comfortable with it. And I think he reads the field really well, too. I mean, how many times have we talked about quarterbacks in this program? You know, they make 1 read, 2 reads, and then it's panic time. It's go. It's hold on to the ball too long. Somebody like JDL is a perfect example of that. He gets it. He does what needs to be done. And I think that, you know, that goes from just being team first. I mean, you can tell, Mike, and we've talked about this, too, to build up on what we've talked about so far with Noah, but you can tell this team really just rallies around him differently than JDL and other QBs that we've seen here.
Yeah, no, it does, Brad. And that's a huge factor when it comes into being the quarterback is where do guys react to? Where do they, you know, who do we use the term leader of men? And probably it's thrown around probably a little too freely.
I disagree. You use it for 2 people, and I use it for a 3rd.
He uses it for a lot more than 2 people.
Flacco, Umar Ballo, and I use it for Keith or Alex Smith. Those are leaders of men.
Noah Fifita, leader of men right there.
You know, there's 2 guys who I think had similar qualities in my time covering the team, where they were pretty universally liked. And that's Willie Tuitama, who, again, and that was just because he worked harder than the guys ahead of him. And the other one was Nick Foles. Because I can tell you, while guys rallied around Khalil Tate, Dawkins was the better leader. You know,
Dawkins just sucked, though.
Yeah, but he was the better leader of the 2 there because he you know, Anu Solomon wasn't universally loved. You know,
wasn't a leader.
Honestly, ironically enough, the only other guy, Vanilla Vic there,
BJ Denker.
He might have been the closest thing, but they just had no one else on that team. But you know,
that team did beat Oregon, though, didn't they?
Yeah,
with Mariota?
JDL wasn't universally loved, as evidenced by things that happened last year, and by look at the reaction when Noah Fifita did well. And again, you mentioned this, Mike. Mysteriously, guys are getting thrown to who haven't gotten thrown to all year.
That's where I wanted to go.
And again, it's not 5 passes but 2 guys who barely had any catches had big catches tonight.
7 different receivers tonight.
That's where I wanted to go with next. I mean, again, it's not like Kevin Green's going out there and catching 9 passes for 120 yards. I get that. But all of a sudden, Malachi Riley is getting into the mix now. Kevin Green is getting into the mix now. It's weird. It's almost like they are open, or it's almost like the quarterback sees them. And I think that's the best testament you can give Noah Fifita is that if you're open, he's going to find you. Boom.
He is. Yeah. I mean, and I think, Kevin Green, like you said, and then Riley was a big shocker to me. I mean, he had 40 yards off 1 reception. That was a huge play. And this team does a good job when they need to spread the ball around under Noah, and just haven't seen that with JDL, haven't seen that with other quarterbacks. And I would imagine, as we progress throughout the season here, you would hope that you continue to see that.
By the way, P-Posh, my guy, to all of those bitter OSU fans heading home, it will be 28 degrees tomorrow morning in Corvallis, and it starts raining Wednesday. P-Posh.
Do you guys see it was snowing at the Colorado State game? Fans were throwing snowballs at the refs, and they had to announce to please stop
for
doing
them to
that.
Stop it? No, I didn't see that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's supposed to snow in for the Broncos.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
Noah Fifita, punter, by the way. That was a nice little punt right there. Big kudos.
Dude, that thing took a heck of a roll. And speaking of punt, 75-yard punt.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. All right, now, real quick, and then we need to talk about the defense here, because the defense, we talked about the clutch factor with the offense. The defense also has a pretty nice clutch factor to it as well. But first, BetMGM. Here's the deal right here. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app of at least $10. You will receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. We were telling you all year. We said, take the over of Arizona. Take the over of 5. You would be there right now. We told you last year. Take the over of 2.5. Make it happen right here. Now let's hear Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right. Now, the defense. The defense now has been very timely here in being able, in this game, to get stops. They got stops now. Granted, they went into that prevent in Uiagalelei. Notice how that was easy for me to say, not Uiagalelei or whatever they were saying. But the defense has really been timely here, Ben White. From Washington in the second half, holding them to 10 points. Obviously, almost the whole game against SC, they were fantastic. Washington State shut them totally down, and they got the stops against Oregon State when they needed to.
It's a timely defense for sure. Washington State, the story was turnovers, right? I would have liked, though, to see the turnovers. Obviously, Davis, we've talked about it. I'm not
Cario, we need those.
I'm not going to pick on him too much, but 3 interceptions would have been nice. So no, it's timely turnovers, right? And that's what you like to see. And the talent is there, the depth is there, the defensive line is good in the sense that it can force pressure more than we've ever seen. Granted, tonight was tough, just given OSU's offensive line. But point being, right, when you're in games like this against Oregon State, UCLA will be the same story. Washington State was the story last week. You're going to need some things to go your way, and some really easy ways to get the momentum in your direction is to force turnovers on the defensive side. And I would just like to see more of those. I would hope we're going to see more of those. I think tonight was just a little case of bad luck or butterfingers for Davis. But no, this defense has been fantastic. The defensive line, Norton, Upshaw, all these other guys you have rotating.
Who?
Big Bill Norton has been fantastic. So you had a number of different guys tonight. Same story, tackles for loss. It's not just It's not just a Scooby Wright. It's not just one player, right? It's the whole unit.
Brad Rich, the great Brad Rich says, can we talk about how trash prevent defense is? Brad Alice, would you like to?
That wasn't even prevent defense, though. That's my complaint. Look, prevent defense, I know what's the old saying, prevents you from winning. But if you do it right, it should take you 8 plays, 3 minutes, and you have no time left. This was boom, boom, boom. This was 3 plays, 75 yards, 44 seconds. That was not prevent defense. That was crap. That being said, Arizona gave up 400 yards. Not a great number, not an awful number. 150 came on the first drive and the last drive. And that's something Arizona has done very well. Adjust. Because I want to say, 3-4 games this year, they've given up touchdowns on the first drive and then held teams relatively scoreless, at least from a touchdown standpoint. The rest of that for a large chunk. Now, that didn't work for Washington, but eventually they figured it out. But this team makes adjustments after the initial touchdown drives. And Arizona did that tonight. Again, when almost, not quite, but almost 50% of their yardage came on 2 drives, one of those being kind of, sort of a nothing drive. Not quite if they get that kick, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So I think, again, the defense was not great, but pretty darn good. And that's
Who
what we
cares,
said all
though?
year. They just
Yeah,
have to be good. And
Yeah.
they've been great at times. And they were good enough tonight. And again, it might be a totally different story if he gets one or two of those picks, because I think they ended up at least getting 6 points out of those two possessions.
Yeah, and looking ahead then to UCLA, Arizona is going to be favored against UCLA, my friends. I guarantee you Arizona is going to be favored against UCLA, and I expect Arizona to beat UCLA as well on homecoming weekend there, Ben White.
We'll see. We'll see on the Vegas odd front. But
The
no, I think
BetMGM Sportsbook app, code word PHNX.
There you go. I think UCLA, I think their offense is kind of in shambles. I think you got a new quarterback, right? They're rolling with Ethan Garbers now. Nothing too special there. They're kind of out of sync, but they do have guys on, big guys on both sides of the line. So it'll be interesting. But to kind of piggyback off what Brad said, I get the yardage thing. I get the concern, but you held Oregon State, a pretty dynamic offense, to 24 points. And I think as we're learning throughout the season, especially here well into conference play, the key is if you can hold these opponents to, 28 or less points, probably going to win most of these games. And Arizona's done that very, very well the last few weeks. I think UCLA presents a number of different challenges, but if Arizona can come out and take care of business tonight, given UCLA's struggles on the offensive side, given the fact that, they've played down to their competition a lot this year and it's at home, I think Arizona's got a pretty good shot.
William?
I think the fact it's in Tucson is huge because I think we can all recall a lot of big wins over UCLA in Tucson. Just like the Rose Bowl's been kind of a house of horrors for Arizona.
Outside of last year, though. Last year was nice.
True. But I guess I'm still, every time Rich Rod walked into that place, I started twitching because I knew it was going to be a bad night. But yeah, I think, again, my guess is I'm going to disagree that I think UCLA is going to be favored because they're an LA team by like 1.5 but I think that shows you how far Arizona's come, that they're not going to be a touchdown dog to a Pac-12 opponent. And again, is this an imminently winnable game? Yes. It's a complete toss-up, as basically, two of the four down the stretch are, because Arizona's going to be favored in two of those.
Yeah.
But that's what what the last 4 or 5 weeks have proven to us is that this is fun.
That's the best way of putting it. What's also fun? Storm Briscoe. That is a great name right there. I like this. Usually offense is bleh, but their defense is legit. I agree with that. That's why I'm not scared of them. I think Arizona is going to shut them down there, fellas.
I mean, anytime you can start a guy who couldn't cut it at Cal, you should.
I mean, let's be honest here. Let's. By the way, no better time to become a PHNX diehard. Arizona sports killing it right now. Football, basketball. You got Ben White. You got Brian Ellis. You got me, and you got merch. You got all kinds of good stuff. What are you going to say?
Nothing to the. I spent 30 seconds trying to figure out where to put my finger there so I could point up to the bin sign.
Then you got the Discord. You got all kinds of great stuff. You got the great Jacob Franklin. You got watch parties. You name it, they got it. Guys, this was an absolutely awesome win for the University of Arizona. This, to me, was the coming-of-age moment for Arizona. I think the foreplay was Washington State, but the main dish, the main date.
Did we just mix our metaphors, Mike?
Yes, we did. Was Oregon State, and we took out the Beavers.
I think you'll look at this game regardless of what happens the rest of the season. I think you'll look at this game under the Fisch era if things keep up the way they are, as okay, this is the sign that everything is coming together and the hard work has paid off. The recruiting has paid off, the coaching, the personnel, everything has clicked, because this is the most well-rounded team and this is the most stable program and state it's been in years. I mean, all sides of the ball. You've got your quarterback and Noah Fifita. It wasn't exactly a perfect route to getting him in there, but, like we talk about, one guy gets injured, it's another guy's job to step up, and things happen for a reason. So I think Washington State was huge. It's obviously a big-time win, 44 points, I get it, but at the same time, I think this win says a hell of a lot more about Arizona, that they're tough. if things aren't going right, if they're getting a little bit flustered at the line scrimmage like tonight against Oregon State's offensive line, if things just aren't clicking and if things aren't fluid. I mean, it wasn't a very fluid performance for them for most of the game, but regardless of all of that, they made it happen when it needed to happen there late in the quarter on those last two drives, and got feeling pretty good. It's a town football game, a football team, and this team is in any game they play, quite honestly, at this point.
All right, this is a great tweet from Aaron Torres, our good buddy Aaron Torres right here. He says, not sure if I'm the only one that has picked up on this, but Arizona football is undefeated with a pair of ranked wins. Since 5-star Elijah Rush decommitted because he didn't like the direction of the program. Aaron Torres, that's why you are the man right there. We like Aaron Torres a great deal on this show.
Hey,
all right.
Here's your reason to get excited. This is Jedd Fisch's team. I was watching Kansas today, and I'm thinking, Lance Leipold, he's a heck of a coach, but how many of those guys are Les Miles guys? And I don't know. I don't follow Kansas football all that much, but there's like 7 Sumlin guys on this team, and like 3 of them play.
If that,
this is his team. Now, granted, there's a lot of transfers, but that's modern college football.
Right.
You could either embrace it or you can be Clemson, who's going to embrace it this year because they have to, because they just lost 2 games in the regular season in a row for the first time under Debo or what, I don't even remember anymore. But this is Jedd Fisch's team, and we're seeing Jedd Fisch evolve. We're seeing Johnny Nansen evolve, because I think the criticism of Johnny Nansen last year were legit. And again, is this a Dwayne Aquina thing? I don't care, because
it's working
almost every week. Even when I was kind of critical of what they were doing against Washington, by the end of the game, it made sense.
Yep.
Right. Their game plan against USC, the only thing they could not account for was Caleb Williams freelancing with his feet and a couple bad calls. Their game plan against Washington, even tonight, again, they gave 400 yards. They gave 24 points with one of those basically being a garbage touchdown. Fantastic. I mean, just a fantastic job so far. And again, can I tell you that I know Jedd Fisch is a guy who can win Pac-12 or Big 12 championships? No, but he doesn't suck.
That's for sure.
And we didn't know that when he was hired. I was as critical as anyone. Tonight, the original game plan didn't look great, and they kept changing things and finding answers. And wow, someone better be holding David's hair, because he's going to be sickened a little bit.
All right,
be excited, because this isn't smoke and mirrors. This is This is Jedd Fisch's team.
All right. We will be back with you, taking tomorrow off, but as always, really appreciate all of you. You comments, you guys are the ones that make this show occur. For Ben White, Brad Allis, I am Mike Luke. Again, big thanks to everybody. Damon behind the scenes, the boss, Saul Bookman. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats post-game show. Back the A, my friends.
We all silly like the mayor.